Hello, everybody. Today's class is basically going to be exactly what we would have covered in class. Although we're just making it the online option because today is Halloween, and I know many of us have young families or other places we would rather be than the university from 5 to 8 tonight. So I'll go over everything and link to everything on my blog as well as send out an email. But make sure you follow this carefully. I want to start off by talking a little bit about the final project. So the final project is a website. It's a complete website, and it's going to be a responsive website. So what a responsive website means is that it responds to what device you're using it on, what device you're viewing it on. For example, I think this year alone, 75% of all internet web traffic is from a mobile device. So that could be an iPad or an iPhone or an Android device, something like that. So people aren't just using internet on big computers. So you've probably noticed some great websites that kind of scale down when you're on a small device, or some that just look really, really bad on a small device. And that's because they haven't put in the time to create a responsive website. So this is totally different than what we have done the last few years because this is a very new product. And actually this lynda.com training course is really awesome. And it goes through another industry standard called Bootstrap, which is essentially templates for creating websites. So if you've yet to do so, again, I will link this. If not, you should log into lynda.com. I always just go to type in Lynda USask, and it gives you the link from which you can get, because you have free premium membership access. And again, very important that you sign in via that link because it will allow you to download the exercise files. If you have a Mac, it should allow you to download a lynda.com app, and then you can view it online or offline, or maybe on a PC. I'm not 100% sure on that. But again, if you're just working at the computer campus in the education building, that should be fine. You're going to want to make sure you download these exercise files. The exercise files are only 23.4 megabytes, so that's actually pretty tiny. When you compare to some of the other files we look at in the course, like video files are usually pretty huge. Downloads, exercise files, you want to make sure you know where those files go. If you right click on it, show in Finder, it'll show you where it is. And it usually puts them in like a download folder. I would strongly suggest you put them in a safe space. If you know you're going to be at the same computer all the time, you could put them on your desktop, but if something were to happen, all your files are stored on that desktop. So again, you should show your due diligence in making sure you've backed it up somewhere, or you might be able to put it into your OneDrive, the drive that says your NSID. But you should always at least back up your files in more than one place in case something does happen. So I've seen it happen many times where it's not explainable, but something just doesn't work and it doesn't work properly. So please make sure you're backing up your work. Also, I want to go over in the email I sent today, I talked about not needing you guys to read over chapter, I think it was 8 and 9, because I think chapter 13 is far more important for what we're doing. And actually, those come a little bit later on in the next couple weeks or so, or after the break. But I would strongly suggest reading chapter 13 as soon as possible. I'll try to make a quiz for this tomorrow and have it out to you guys so that it's kind of fresh in your head and you can still do the quiz right away. But I want to show you why I think it's really important. Basic methods of deploying or displaying elements of multimedia on a web page, including HTML, CSS, and nibbling. HTML and CSS are going to be two things you're going to know and learn a lot about. Essentially, every website is HTML. And CSS is a way of, it's cascading style sheets. It's a way of formatting, essentially. Manipulating the appearance of text on a web page. We're going to be doing that. Determining which graphic format's best suited for a website. That's going to be extremely important for you when you make your own site. Play audio on the web, embedding sound on the web, which isn't a requirement, but again, that would be something extra that you may want to do. Include animations on the web, include video on the web without the use of plugins. So these are all very important things. It'll talk a little bit about what is HTML, hypertext markup language, I believe. Or it should say right there. Hypertext, there it is. HTML5. These codes are all very important as well. So these are HTML tags. And as you will learn very quickly, everything with a website has to do with a tag. A tag is a way of organizing things so it displays properly, and you kind of have to understand, you don't need to know these, but you need to be able to kind of figure out what they do. And most often it's fairly easy, like address, body, which would be like the body of text, a button, lots of link, map, nav would be a nav bar, things like that. So don't try to memorize these, but I would like you to read through these. And it provides you a really in-depth look as to, like, something like this. This is code. This is a website. And this might mean nothing to you, but once you start learning a little bit about HTML, it'll start to make sense. You can start to deconstruct. For example, one of the first things that popped out at me was the width. So these are width and height. So whatever this object is, it's an object. It is exactly 320 by 240 height. And if I kind of go through, name is a movie, allow full screen, allow script access, ID player. So I'm guessing that this is a box, like a video, that plays a movie. So it's not like you don't need to know how to write that, because what Dreamweaver will do is kind of teach, it'll kind of do all the writing for you. You just kind of need to know how it works. All right, I don't want to spend too much time going through this, but I feel it's really important to kind of follow this. And again, that's chapter 13 in the 8th edition. Another link I'm going to put on is the HTML Glossary, and this is from Code Academy. A really awesome educational website for computer science and kind of getting everybody into coding. Attributes, all these things are basic elements of HTML. And if you read through them, they'll start to make sense, and you'll see how everything there relates to it. I'm also going to make a post with all these things as well. I'm going to go through the assignment from start to finish as well, and I'm going to be posting my links on every single one of the videos in the lynda.com course, as it's just over 2 hours, and I'm going to leave my notes just in case something doesn't work, or something I find is a little bit weirdly designed, or etc. So you might find that my blog post is extremely important for you as you're going through it the first time. Just going to close that. Okay, back to lynda.com. For this assignment, you are essentially going to be creating 2 websites. The first website, you're going to copy his exactly. The second website, you're going to make a website of your very own, which can be based heavily off his website, where you just kind of add in your own information, change the pictures, and modify it a little bit. But you can base it heavily off of his website. So the reason why I'm getting you to go and build his website first is so that you should, in theory, understand every single step along the process. And that way, something like adding or changing in the images should be fairly easy for you. And I'll go into more detail on that in a later video, and talk about it next week in class as well. A few things. Make sure you don't skip over any of these, because as a part of completing his website, you will have to show me your certificate. So you will have a certificate. Boom. And the certificate will show you, say just this one. Oh. I guess that course has been retired. Weird. Okay, you should be able to track it down here. I don't really want to Okay, anyway, you should be able to find your certificate. I would love for you just to take a screen capture of it and post it up on your blog as a part, like it shows me you've done it. But that's also something you can use in your portfolio of learning, which is always good to have to be able to show off, as it shows that you are capable of doing some of these awesome skills. As I had mentioned, you will have to complete his website first. So what I strongly recommend is having the video open on the one side, and I kind of go through it and pause it and then just jump back and forth. So you can see that this is actually where he is in the first few videos. Just jump back. And I'll show you how to get that set up, just because I know setting it up sometimes is a little bit daunting. Again, don't skip over any of these, what you should know before watching. He does mention that you should have a basic understanding of HTML and CSS, and he also recommends one of the courses right here. It's not a bad idea, but I know you guys don't have a ton of time. And if this is something that really interests you, those are great resources, but don't feel like you have to go through them. I found that the students had no problem following along step by step. And the great part of this is it literally is step by step, watching him do every single thing, and you have the ability to slow it down, pause it, reverse it, etc. It even shows you how to use the exercise files. But again, remember I said just download them and move them somewhere where you know, even if you have to rename it, putting it in your desktop or that folder with your name on it on the hard drive, and also backing it up, not a bad idea. This is a really good video on explaining what Bootstrap is and how it works. So we're using Dreamweaver. Dreamweaver it's a Wysiwyg editor. And a Wysiwyg editor is actually, it's called What You See Is What You Get. So here is the final completed website. And it's right here. So what you see on this page is what you get on a web page. So right there you can actually preview it in Safari. There you go. So it looks just the same. So that's called a Wysiwyg editor. What you see is what you get is what it stands for. Again, this isn't an active site on the internet. This is just a preview. So at top here you can see it's actually going through my folder to exactly where I saved it. So that's called a local website. Again, not up on the internet, just it's running off my computer. So you're able to run websites off your computer as long as all the files are together and it knows where it's looking, right? Which is how we're going to be viewing this first site. I will show you how you actually have web server space on the USask website, and we will be uploading your finished site on that. So homepage.usask.ca, if you click on that, it will actually show you how to set it up, but I will go through. This actually looks much more complicated than it actually is, and I think it's just the MJG, it's your NSID. So literally, this is the website that I made when I was in your shoes back in 2009. Well, that's when I edited it, at least. It's probably a couple of years before that. I'm guessing some of these don't even work. I'd be very... Oh, man. So lots of stuff with students, lots of things. The Prelinger Archives, that's a great link if you've ever... Some of those links don't work, obviously. But yeah, so this is essentially the first website I made. Yours will be way better. My blog didn't work, clearly. And some of the navigation is broken and email. Nice. That actually works. Right on. Cool. So yeah, you will be creating your own website. Again, that's step 2. Step 1 is creating your own, creating the website following his. That was a project I did with some students. Awesome. So, okay, that's my website. Back to a little bit more about Bootstrap. Again, so Bootstrap is kind of now the industry standard of a template of how internets work for being responsive. So Bootstrap is, I kind of explain it as it's an add-on that's been incorporated into Dreamweaver. So Dreamweaver knows it's kind of the industry standard, so it says, okay, you can use Bootstrap within Dreamweaver, and everything should work. So again, it usually has 3 different views in it. We'll go back here. So up at the top here, they're called media queries. And if you kind of deconstruct that word, media query, you'll be able to figure out that it determines what style of device you're on, and based on that device, which is like pixel dimensions, it decides what size of website to give you. So for example, like right now, this screen is really wide. I'm using a wide monitor, so it's at the 1200 plus pixels. So it's showing me the full website. But if I squeeze it down, you can see that change there, right between the blue and the purple. So it can tell that I'm on a smaller device, and when I go down even more, it basically kind of formats just like that. So you get to something that looks good on all devices. And again, I can preview that. Previewing it's always a really good idea. Why do they have 3 different browsers? Well, not all websites work in every browser. That's kind of the goal, but not always reality. So this is one of the ways in which I test your sites, because a responsive website should have no problem doing this. And if yours doesn't, that just means something's broken. So pay really close attention. In the videos, he does a really good job of explaining absolutely everything. You can see like one of the first things they do is obviously kind of in the middle there with all the text. Those are columns. They go to set those up, and as well as even the Yosemite text on the image there. It changes sizes depending on how you scale it. So this, again, great website. That's the preview. This is also super handy too, a device preview. So you can scan or go to that code, and it will actually take you to your website, just as we previewed in Safari. It will take you to it on your device. So that's super cool as well. Something to try playing with. A little bit more about the views inside here. He'll talk about making sure you're in beginner. There's different modes as well. So you can, if something looks weird to you, like just go back to beginner, and you can just hit reset beginner. I would stay in beginner, don't leave beginner. Insert. So again, these are some of those HTML files. They're basically little parts of code, but they're in easy to navigate areas. So like a nav bar. A carousel is just a way to view images, thumbnails, media object, containers, grids, rows. So essentially a website in its essence is a nav bar, and it has a container. Would be a container that has columns and rows. And then there's buttons, labels, things like that, navigation, page. You'll see divs, so HTML, you have your header, you have your body. So if we click on one, it should also highlight it in blue. Right now there's different views here. There's code view, which if you can understand this, you are well advanced and you're amazing, and I am very envious. As you start to learn a little bit of HTML, you can start to figure out what this stuff is. So doc type, HTML, it's telling the internet this is an HTML document, this is a website, it's using Bootstrap, there's a title of the website right there. So Yosemite National Park, and you can see some nav bar, let's go down to the bottom, all photos by David Powers. So sometimes I'll just go to split, which you can see the Wysiwyg, what you see is what you get, and the code. So, that last line there, all photos by David Powers. If you highlight it, it'll show you exactly where it is in the code. So if I wanted to, let's just try Mark. Go away. Boom. So I just, oops. If you do something wrong, you can always undo it by hitting Command Z. Okay, these are little paragraphs, so anything that has text is usually around a paragraph. Things like footers, again, so really easy to change. I could also edit that right here. If I clicked on it, it'll highlight it and allow me to There you go, and see how it just added that in for me. So if you change one, it affects the other, and vice versa, etc. Also, live view, which is just the Wysiwyg. I prefer to use split view. I think it's kind of one of the better ones to use. But before we get into this, you got to start somewhere. So I'm just going to switch. Index.html is a website page. Every single website in the world has a file in it called index.html. The internet, whenever it's looking for a file to open on a web page, you essentially have to upload files to a server. And so your internet, let's say you're going to Google. The internet sends you to a Google server, and it looks for like the index.html page, which would be the Google homepage. Or if you're going to my page, that front page I had open there. This one. Nope, not that one. Oh, I think I closed it. Anyway, this one. It would be. It won't even show you here. It would be like index.html/codeacademy.com. Like you can tell that this is different hierarchies. So this isn't actually the main page. There's an article section, then a glossary.html. So .html is always a website page. So index is always the first page. But again, how the heck did we get here? So if you've never seen it before, Adobe Dreamweaver CC, you can always just go up here to type in Dreamweaver. I have two, CS5 and CC. If you see multiple ones, always try to go with CC. That's the newest Creative Cloud version. I'm in it right now. You might go to New, and it will pop up like all these weird things. It might say New Website, etc. But if you go through setting up...
After launching Dreamweaver, let's start by setting up the...
This video, it actually goes through setting it up perfectly.
We've set up the Dreamweaver workspace and created a...
layout grid. And after that, actually, this is exactly where I am right here. So he essentially gets you to make a new website. You need a folder that contains a website. And that folder will become extremely important. For this first one, you just need to have the downloads folder. That download folder with the working files. Because really, you're working off his files. And I'll show you kind of exactly why and how that's important. And if you've never used working files before, there is a video using the exercise files. If you haven't done that before, double check that one. So along every chapter, for example, chapter 1, 2, 3, there will be a folder. So this is video, or chapter 1, video 3. So 1, 2, 3.
We've set up the Dreamweaver web.
You could technically, like there's no index.html, but there is a images folder. And he talks about that in the video. Once we get into these other folders, they follow other videos and other chapters. So if you wanted to, you could technically like just jump ahead and open up index.html. And obviously if you just click and open it, it will open up in a web browser. Because technically, remember, that's an internet file. But if we right click on it, open with Dreamweaver, it will open up Dreamweaver just like this. But you're not going to want to do that too much. Like I said, you might want to follow along with him as much as possible. Again, really make sure you have this getting started done correctly. And I'm going to go over it kind of really quickly just to make sure we're all on the same page. But again, follow his videos. I think he starts off with File New. This takes a second to load because it should say Bootstrap over here. Yeah, there we go. So he goes to HTML, Bootstrap, Create New, and Customize he goes to as well. And he changes the pixel dimension. And actually, I can tell right there that I changed it to 649. The medium was 7 something. He changed it to. Again, I am just going to. You know what? Let's just check out the video just to double check.
After launching Dreamweaver, let's start by setting up the Dreamweaver menu at the top right, Tools Workspace, Files panel, by Dreamweaver. Use whichever workspace suits the exercise files corresponding to the chapter. Set up everything ready. EW Bootstrap.
Yes. So actually, sorry, he makes a site first. Site, new site. I'm just going to cancel this. I actually have this done already. So you would go to new site and local site root folder. That should be going into whatever chapter you're working on right now. So he said in his video, go to chapter 1 and open that up and hit choose. And I'm just going to save that. Yours shouldn't have this arrow. It's just because I'm trying to do it again when I've already done it. Let's just try to do it from scratch. So he calls it DW Bootstrap. I always find try to write exactly what he does. Don't try to change it because sometimes there's already a crap 2. There we go. And if I double click on that, if you notice that something isn't right, double check it. Like if it doesn't look exactly like his video, figure it out. Go back, step back. Because right now, watching his videos, there should be an images folder there under files, and in mine there isn't. So I'm just going to go back to my original one because I know it's done correctly. The only thing that should be in yours once you set it up the first time is just images. I have all these other ones because I've gone through the next steps, which he goes through in the videos. And so the next step is file new, web document, HTML, and then again, Bootstrap. And he says to create new, and then he changes the size of the media queries. I'm not going to do that because I've already done it. But as soon as you hit enter, done, you start to get all these different files within that folder, including an index.html, which you didn't have before, and you should be saving constantly. So files, save all related files, etc. Save constantly, save, back up your files, and follow along in the videos. So if you followed him, much better than following me, because I'm bouncing around all over the place. He will have shown you
Dreamweaver workspace
how to do pretty much everything.
National
That's
Park.
kind of where we are right now. And he'll talk a little bit about some of the tags and some of the CSS. But really, as long as you can follow, you should be perfect. And again, it starts from literally nothing to the last web page and previewing it. So as you're going through making his website, try to think about a website that you can make that kind of follows maybe his kind of guidelines, something that can fit into what he has created, like this. Again, I don't want you to have like almost identical and just like a few things change, but try to find different icons. Trying to find a useful website that you can actually make work out of this. Again, the marks will come depending on the amount of time and the effort and how well it works. So for somebody who all they do is really just change the information, change a few pictures, some colors, after you've gone through the first website, you should be able to do that fairly easily, and that might only take like an hour or two work. But somebody who tries to make this website their own and actually makes it a useful website, that's usually where you're going to see the higher marks. Again, I know this is fairly new to absolutely everybody, so I kind of take that into consideration as well. But I find that this is one of the areas in which students spend a lot of time in this course, purely because they have an idea that they think they can turn into a website, and it really is something that you can be proud of for a long time. Also think of maybe even something that could be useful for you. For example, like a teacher portfolio page when you're looking for a job. For example, if we go to mine, MJG, I used this for years, literally. And I did a lot of really cool projects, and it's pretty easy to get kids going to homepage.usas.ca and slash a few letters and numbers. And as you can see, like It's pretty easy, but some of those assignments that we did, you can link files. So this can actually be pretty useful for you in your education teaching. So try to think of what you can use this for outside of the course, because I find the more authentic you create this as an experience, the better off you'll be in the long run. So again, this is the final page. This is what yours should look like when you're completed. Again, I will be testing on all sorts of things. I'll be testing on MacBook with a wide screen, probably my iPhone, and really what I need to be able to see is this responsive design. So it should change just like this, etc., and everything should be good. So that's kind of what we're searching for. Again, I'll just bring up the videos. Make sure you go through them. I wouldn't watch them and kind of like don't stop along with them. Do stop and go through each step by step as he does it, because I find if you try to go back and do the work after listening to like a whole chapter, it's really quite hard. Some are much easier than others. I usually speed it up so that I don't feel like I'm losing time, but the entire course, going through it at his speed, is 2 hours and 10 minutes. I find normally it takes 4 to 6 to follow it step by step, really very super closely and super tedious. So kind of think about that sort of time. I've seen people knock out their website in an entire day and then or his website and then come back the next day and make their own while it's still kind of fresh in their head. So really very important to use this as the teaching tool for this design. As I had mentioned, we can always go back to my website as a resource. This blogger post, as I'd mentioned, I'll be trying to post anything I thought wasn't super clear. Basically, my personal notes on everything right here on my blog post. And if you have not been in my blog, markobay402.blogspot.ca. Again, that should be linked on our main Google Doc page. Awesome. Again, if your name isn't in here and you're in the course, make sure you get it working. Jennifer, make sure you just link it by selecting your name. Click the link, and it asks you where. It actually searches, which is kind of weird. But that's where I would go to view blog. Don't copy this because that's not my blog name. View blog. You would copy yours, so Command C. Go back to the Google Doc, and that would be Command V, and hit apply. Obviously, that's not the right one for you. But yes, everybody in the class, this is how I'm checking your work. And some of those due dates were today, so make sure you have that figured out, and make sure you have that working. And also a really good idea to be checking out kind of what other people are working on. Mr. Aziz is always on top of his game for pretty much everything. Again, comment, send people good information. Tell them what you're talking about. Sometimes I try to get in here. Yeah, great to see some work being done and sharing. Again, his design for his house was amazing. I keep wanting to point that out. Perfect. So those are some tips for getting started. Save. Back up everything. Do not trust the computers. Sometimes I'll put that drive, like a little thumb drive in, and just save that document. If you take it to another computer, you might have to relink some files. So sometimes it's kind of a pain in the butt. So the best thing you could do is try to work off one computer. But again, for the assignment, you will have 2 websites. One will be his website, so it should look exactly like this. We'll preview it. We'll talk about how to do that and how to send me a link to it. Or you can actually just do a screen capture like this, talking about all the elements. And then you're going to create your own website. You can base it off this website, or you can come up with something totally different. There are other lynda.com training courses on web design. But I found that this one is by far the best. And it's actually one of the shorter ones as well. So he goes over everything very meticulously. He's British, so some things might sound a little odd to you. But yeah, we should be good that way. Again, we have not gone over how to upload this to the internet. For example, if I was working on this website, there's some tools up here. This would connect it to my remote server, which will be the homepage.usas.ca server. And there's a get file from remote server. So for example, I can jump on any computer, log in with my NSID to the homepage.usas.ca server and download all my website files that I have up there, and it will be as if I have them on my desktop, so I can work with them. And if I make some changes, all I do is hit save or upload, and it puts those files back up and it updates my website. So these become very important. Some of these, insert, CSS designer, and files become very important. You can move things around, but just make sure you can see everything just as he does in his video, right? Extremely, extremely important to follow exactly what he has. Even things like keeping the same words. Don't feel like you need to change them. For the first one, essentially I'm watching you create his site. And if you've done it correctly, you've made his site. And then hopefully you've kind of taken some pointers and tips on how to make that into your site. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Remember, don't forget about the responsive factor, which is what he's working on. And that's essentially all we need to know to get into Dreamweaver. So I will be updating my post with my step-by-step instructions. Not a bad idea. Sorry, not step-by-step instructions, but my notes on my process going through his. But might not be a bad idea to skip through some of these just to get yourself a little bit more familiar with the terms. Watch for my post, which will be the continuation of this one. I'll put both those courses in the links. And yeah, I think that's all we need to worry about. So start cracking on that. It's not even a bad idea. Like sometimes I'll watch those Dreamweaver courses first to kind of get more familiar with it, and then I will follow it step by step. As you can see, that's what I've done here. Is I've watched quite a bit of it before I've actually jumped into it, because I've done some before. But this is it says intermediate, but I think you guys are at that intermediate stage. Even though you probably feel like you're a super beginner, you will pick up fairly quickly, especially because you can just follow him verbatim. So yeah, that is the intro to the final assignment, the lynda.com. Remember, this will be a big chunk of your final mark. I think it's, I don't want to, 25% or 30%, something like that. And it will comprise of all those different elements. So remember, it might not even be a bad idea for you to take notes along the way. You can take screen caps of anything along the way. You can record, you can do whatever you want. And remember, everything goes up on the blog. This is pretty much how I'm going to be able to assess your work, is I will literally just go to this link and I will follow people's work and see what they have posted. And all I do is kind of go through. Awesome. And I love to read kind of everything you've written, take a look really up close. And that's a great job. Awesome. And I try to comment as well. Usually if there's a comment, you know it's assessed. So last week on the 25th, I sent out an email that had a link to it that said all the final due dates for everything. Many of those were today, especially for the quizzes, so make sure you have those done. And yeah, I think we're good to go. So responsive design with Bootstrap Dreamweaver CC 2015. This is the course. This is what we're following verbatim to make a website. And then you will come up with a second website. It can be on anything you want, but again, the best websites are one you have a little bit of value into, a little bit of skin in the game. Think of something you could make for somebody. Think of something you could make for yourself that will help you in your teaching, anything. And go from there. All right, see you next week.